Project Management for Healthcare Managers, Week 5, Project Planning, Time Management, HTML 375. Time management is one of the key deliverables for the planning phase. This activity is how we build a schedule so that everybody who is a resource on the project knows when to work and what needs to be done. This is the coordinated effort that allows projects to be managed, to be organized and complete, a way of making sure things are getting done on time. The outcome of time management will be to develop a schedule. We'll start off with the work breakdown structure where we have defined our activities, then we'll sequence the activities. For each activity, we'll estimate and assign resources needed to complete the task and calculate an estimate of the time. The first step is to define the activities. We go through the steps, the work decomposition, and identify the tasks, the lowest level activities. On the next page, we'll see an example of the tasks in a list, and we'll give attributes to the activities in the list. There also may be milestones, checkpoints of things that need to happen, like an approval, that are not defined tasks with a specific amount of project time and resource to complete, but a placeholder for an event to occur. A milestone may also be set to identify completion of a connected set of tasks. For example, completing all the preparation steps in our pie may be a milestone. This is the outline form from the work breakdown structure of making the pie example. All the lowest level tasks have been circled, and these will be used to create an activity list. The higher level tasks will be left behind as they are already accounted for in the lower level tasks. The next step is to estimate the activity duration. There are many ways to do this. The first way is expert judgment, which is to ask the project team or subject matter experts how long it will take. Be aware when gathering estimations based solely on expert judgment. Some managers may add a little extra time to the estimates for some extra cushion. What happens is if enough subject matter experts or managers pad their individual time, the overall estimate becomes inflated and the schedule becomes inaccurate. It is crucial to stress the importance of using realistic times to estimate activity. Another to-do estimating is analogous estimating, using a similar activity of known duration to compare and estimate. For example, if it took 3 months to build that house, we may estimate the next house will take about the same duration. Parametric estimating is taking a unit value and estimating by multiplying the value by the estimated output. For example, if it takes 4 hours to paint 1 room, then parametric estimate to paint a house with 5 rooms would be 20 hours. 3-point estimate uses expert judgment in a formula. The 3 points used are the pessimistic value, or the worst case estimate, the best case or optimistic estimate, and the average of all the estimates. The formula is 4 times the average, plus the optimistic, plus the pessimistic, divided by 6. Finally, the reserve estimate is used any of the other estimating methods and adding a % to account for risk. The reserve or contingency that we'll review in the risk management is time or money set aside to account for variation and to put the project back on track. What is displayed here is the activity list, the list of lowest level tasks from the work breakdown structure, and listed in a table. The ID numbers are also listed. Then each activity duration was estimated using one of the methods from the previous slide and recorded in the last column. Next, the activities need to be sequenced or set in order. There are different approaches, but it is best practice to use precedence diagramming first, then use critical path method or the program evaluation and review technique are performed next. These are actually similar methods with the same steps. The difference is that the critical path method assumes realistic times, where the PERT assumes probabilistic estimates with possible variation. The result is the same. These networks can be used to create a schedule. The precedence diagramming method is a visual diagram of the process flow of tasks. The activities are arranged in a flow of the order of occurrence. It is customary to create a process flow from left to right with arrows connecting the tasks. The order would either be in series, with one activity occurring after the other, or in parallel, where two or more activities would happen at the same time. The dependencies between tasks define the layout and the flow of activities. There are 4 types of dependencies to account for. The most common is finish to start, which means that one task must finish before another one starts. For example, the pie can't be baked until it is assembled. This is the most common. The rest of the precedences are based on how work may be organized. The finish to finish dependencies is that one job can't finish until another job finishes. In the pie example, the crust and the filling could be performed in parallel. However, both jobs must be finished before proceeding to the next step. A start-start relationship means that one job can't start until another job starts. In our example, you can't start preparing until you've started assembling the ingredients and the kitchen tools. The last type is start-finish, which means the next job can't finish until the first job starts. This is more about the use of resources. You can't finish the assembly until the crust and filling are started. There are 4 different types of dependencies that are included with each task that will impact the order of precedence. One of the types of dependencies is a mandatory dependency, and the order of occurrence is not negotiable. For each, the pie has to be complete before you can start baking it. All the preceding tasks must be complete before starting the next one. A discretionary dependency is optional. The project manager gets to choose when a job will start. For example, the filling or the crust may be started first, or they may be started at the same time. An external dependency relies on input or resource that is external to the process. For example, the ingredients, like the apples are being delivered by a home delivery service, there is a dependency on assembling the ingredients if you have to wait for the truck to come. All the internal dependencies are the ones that we have direct control. If all your resources are working on your project, there are no external factors. The dependencies would only be internal. The critical path method uses a duration of the task to define the flow. From this flow, the minimum time to complete the project is based on available resources. This method also locates the sources of flexibility in the schedule. The program evaluation and review technique uses probabilistic estimates, and the overall times and the areas of flexibility have more variation. Both methods set the order of the tasks, making modifications to the precedence diagramming method. This is an example from Visio of an activity box. This example is from the PERT template. This format is typical CPM or PERT layout, can be used on post-it notes that are labeled in the same way. The first 2 fields filled out are the task name and the duration. These are supplied from the activity list. The rest will be filled out on the example in the following slide. Let me define these terms before starting the example. The early start is as soon as the job can be started. Usually a numbered day goes into space. If a job ended on day 3, then the earliest this job, or if the job before ended on day 3, then the earliest this could be started would be on day 4. Add the number of days and the duration to fill in the early finish. The next number is the late finish. Starting from the last job, this is the day number preceding the last start value of the next task. If the next job had a late start of 7, the late finish for this task would be 6. The slack is the difference between the early start and the late start, or the early finish and late finish. For example, if the task could be started as early as day 2 and still finish on time, if started on day 4, the job has 2 days of slack. These 2 extra days are a flexible part of CPM. Tasks that have no slack are in the critical path. These tasks are not flexible. This is an example using 4 steps in pie making. The first step is to assemble the ingredient. It has to be completed before the next jobs can start. The next activities is to prepare filling and make crust. These tasks have discretionary dependencies. Each could be started first in this example, and we'll do them at the same time. We'll assume we have 2 resources. The final step is to bake the pie. Next, we'll fill in the tasks and the durations and set the precedent order of the tasks. Next, we perform what's called a forwards pass. We'll assign what's the early value and enter the time values from left to right. We'll start with the assembled ingredients and put our early start as 1 minute. If it takes 5 minutes to complete it, it ends at minute 5. For the next 2 tasks, they can both be started in the next minute, so 6 goes in the top left box. The prepare filling takes 10 minutes, so it would be done at minute 15. The prepare crust takes 20 minutes, so it will be done at 25 minutes. Notice these jobs can be started at the same time, but the filling will be waiting around for the crust to finish. This is the slack time. The final step cannot start until the filling and the crust are finished, so the soonest it could start is minute 26. If the pie takes 50 minutes to bake, then the project will be completed in 75 minutes. The backward pass begins at the project complete time. 75 is entered in the late finish box for baking, and since it takes 50 minutes, the latest it can start is 26. Since the filling and the crust have to be complete before that, the latest that these both can finish is 25. The prepare crust takes 20 minutes, and the late start is 6. The filling only takes 10 minutes, and the latest it can be started is 16 minutes. In the late start for the first job, it has to precede both the filling and the crust, so the latest it could start is 5 minutes. Since the task takes 5 minutes, the latest the first job could start is the first minute. Notice that for the backwards path, the prepare filling can wait 10 minutes before starting. This is 10 minutes of slack time. The assembled ingredients, the prepare crust, and the baked pie all have a slack of 0, which means this is the critical path. If any of these jobs are delayed, the completion time for the project will be impacted. The next step is to identify the activity resources. Who will perform the activity in each box, and what do they need? The who may be added in the activity box or may be added to a schedule. A person needs to be identified for each task. Identifying if equipment or other finite resources is needed is part of this analysis as well. One of the ways to analyze and adjust the schedule is resource leveling. If a person or equipment is double booked or becomes constrained, you can extend the schedule to remove this conflict. Another method of analysis is using computer modeling to identify resource conflicts. Some of the most common technology approaches is what-if models or computer simulations. Simulations can also identify bottlenecks. Compression is a scheduling technique that can reduce overall schedule. One of the methods is fast tracking to identify discretionary dependencies and schedule more tasks in parallel. Fast tracking assumes more project resources, and crashing is using extra staff to get the job done. This is an example from the book on level loading. We can see in the top example Susan as a resource that's assigned to activity A and activity B. In this case, activity A and B can be worked in parallel. To complete all her scheduled work, Susan has to work 16 hours in day 1. In the second example, when her work is level loaded, Susan can start activity B on day 2. All the tasks are completed 1 day later, but the scheduling conflict for Susan has been resolved. Scheduling tools allow us to visualize and track and report our schedules. Some of the tools we have are the bar charts, the milestone charts, or the project schedule network charts. The network charts are an example of the critical path we completed in the previous example. This is an example of a Gantt chart, which has been done here in Visio. The Gantt chart is a modified bar chart with the tasks identified in the rows and the time tracked on the x-axis, left to right. I use the pie making example again here. This time I've set up the job in series, not making the filling and the crust at the same time. Displayed here is a comparison between a milestone chart and a bar chart. The milestone chart identifies specific points in time, where the bar chart identifies task bars. A milestone chart is great for tracking approval and decisions. It's simple to read and it's valuable for leaders' frame of reference. The bar chart is a modified histogram and can be used to track progress. This is valuable for project team frame of reference. One-Page Project Manager is a formatted Excel spreadsheet. Clark and Mick Campbell designed the format that is displayed and is described in the book, The New One-Page Project Manager. This is a great tool to track time management. The activity list is entered in the columns on the left, and the Gantt chart is created using conditional formatting for columns on the right. Each week, One-Page Project Manager is reviewed and updated with progress. The standard status colors, green, yellow, red, are used to track project progress. In review, we reviewed the steps in time management. The first step, to define activities, is performed during work decomposition. The next step, estimated duration, has different approaches including analogous estimating, parametric estimating, expert judgment, or three-point estimating. The next activity is sequencing, where precedence diagramming is using a set of rules to define order and dependencies. The critical path method applies times to the sequence task. The approaches analyze the resource and equipment to shorten the project or reduce resource conflicts. And the scheduling tools include methods to visual and report progress, including the bar chart, milestone charts, Gantt charts, or One-Page Project Manager.